Good afternoon and welcome to the Comms Club. Now, this afternoon's live builds on the earlier one this week in which I shared with you the foundation of all good communication starts from a place of clear is kind, unclear is unkind. And building on that today, my question to you is, do you actually know what it is you want from the piece of communication that you are delivering? Now, this might sound like the world's most obvious question, but I can tell you I'm living proof of the fact that it's not. I have sat in countless disciplinary and grievance, formal and informal meetings where I've heard somebody complain about a situation they've experienced with a colleague, or a grievance or a situation, a dissatisfaction, unhappiness of some degree with their boss, with their working conditions. And 10 times out of 10 times, I will say to them, okay, so help me understand, what is it that you want going forward? And I can tell you 9 times out of 10 in those conversations, the person will look at me a little bit perplexed and say, not sure, or I don't know, I just wanted to talk to someone about it, I wanted to raise it. Now, in the spirit of confident communication requires you to feel in control. That's how you maintain your confidence. And we talked earlier on this week about preparing for those situations when perhaps you're talking about something quite emotive or something that you think will be difficult to either say or difficult for the other person to hear. And therefore, control comes from the preparation of not just of finding the courage to start the conversation, to tackle the issue, but also from the courage to say what it is you want. Now, it sounds like it would be something you'd worry about later and just actually get it out there. It's not, it's an integral part of a conversation. And I would encourage you to stop yourself from raising an issue or starting one of these type of conversations unless you have also asked yourself, what would a good outcome look like? What does success look like? What do I actually want? By raising it, by letting this person know this, by telling this piece of information, by sharing it, what do you actually want? And if you can't think of what you want in raising it, then I would beg you to consider whether you ought to raise it at all. Because if it is something that is troubling you, is important to you, can't go unspoken about, then there must be a resolution somewhere. There must be a baby step that you could articulate that would help you feel better about the situation or improve the situation that you find yourself in. And if you can't think of one, then I would urge you to consider even raising the issue in the first place. So sometimes I give you some situations. So I've sat across from people who have raised a complaint informally about a colleague or a boss. And I've actually said to them, so what is it you want to happen? Is it that you want to raise a formal grievance? Do you want to have an informal mediation with this person? Do you want me to talk to them on your behalf? Do you want to change departments or change directorates? Do you want anything to happen? And actually, sometimes people, I don't know whether they start a conversation just wanting to spout and they just want to feel better for sharing. Well, that's fine, but you need to pick your audience for that. Because if you take it to somebody whom it matters to, either because it is part of their job for it to matter and for them to help you get a resolution, or if you're talking to somebody who has a personal vested interest, if you raise something with someone who is involved, they will want to get you a solution. And not being able to say, actually, yeah, I think I do want to explore a formal grievance, or actually an opportunity to sit down and mediate the situation with them would be really great. Or, do you know what, I don't know, I just need to think about it. Be clear, and it will serve you really well if you can prepare what you want as an outcome before you even start talking about it. And sometimes I've sat down with friends who've got relationship issues, and I know some of you may be in situations where you think there is something I would love to tell my partner or a family member or a relative, but you actually stop yourself from doing it. Now, sometimes we stop ourselves from starting the conversation because we don't really know what we want to do about it. And I've had conversations with friends where they've had a good old moan about their spouse or their partner, and I've said to them, look, at the end of the day, what is it you want? Do you want to break up with them? Or do you just want to talk to them about this? Or are you going to do nothing? Do you just want to be out? What is it you actually want? And sometimes they don't know. But I can tell you what is far better in these scenarios. It's far better for the person to work out what it is they want as an outcome than for the person they're speaking to decide. Because in those grievance or disciplinary situations, if they didn't know what they want, that they wanted the outcome to be, I would decide for them, which 9 times out of 10 would be fine. But what if it isn't really the right thing? And, you know, what if you're sharing your thoughts with how unhappy you are in a relationship with someone, and the friend that you're talking to says, well, you know, what do you want to do about it? You're like, I don't know. And then that friend takes it upon themselves to talk to your spouse about how you're feeling. What if that is a nightmare situation for you to find yourself in? Well, unless you're clear on what you want, the chances are you leave it open for someone else to decide what it is that's going to happen next. And sometimes with my kids, you know, they'll come home and talk about a situation with a friend or a teacher. And I'll say to them, okay, so I hear you, I understand you. So what do you want to do about it? And with children in particular, I always open that question to them, because I've found that they so often don't want their parents to fix their issues for them. They don't want us, to the minute that we hear they're upset at school by another friend, the last thing they want is for us to get on the WhatsApp to that friend's mum and have it out with them, or ring the school and complain, or, you know, organise for them to change classes or whatever. That's the last thing they often want us to do. But it's unless they can tell us and articulate some of the options that are open to them for themselves, we will undoubtedly take action, because we're mums and dads and that's what matters to us, their happiness. So when Brooke or Ethan will talk to me about a situation like this, I will always say to them, okay, I hear you and that must have been tough. So what do you want to do now? And sometimes they'll say, I don't think I want to do anything. I just wanted to talk to someone about it to get it out of my head. And I can say, okay, cool. We won't do anything about it. Or they might say, you know, I don't know, I think Mrs. Shepherd ought to know about it. And I'll say, okay, do you want to talk to her, or do you want me to talk to her? Giving the power to the person who is sharing that issue to make their own decision on what good looks like means they will be bought in to the outcome. And then however that falls, whether that ends well or it doesn't end well, they will own and take ownership for it. So it's a really powerful question to ask of others when you are the recipient. Okay, so what is it you actually want then? So what do you want to do about that? It's a really powerful question. And when you ask it of someone else, leave a nice big pause, because the next voice, when you ask a really important question like that to somebody, adult or child, the next voice that you want to hear is theirs. Don't assume because they can't come back really quickly with an answer that they don't know what the answer is. I would encourage you in those situations, when you ask something like that of someone, then stay quiet. Battle with yourself to sit still, stay still, and keep your lips still until they speak. Even if the first words they say are, I don't know, what do you think? Give them time, because that gap, that pause, isn't filled by indecision. It's just filled by processing time. They are thinking in their own mind, okay, so what do I actually want to do about this? How do I feel about it? Am I courageous enough to act? Should I just leave it for now? They're just thinking. Be respectful and give them time. Do not jump in and fill that gap. So when you're faced in those scenarios, ask the question of others, but also if you're about to instigate a difficult conversation, ask yourself that question first. What is, okay, fine, so I'm going to talk to them about this, but what do I actually want to happen as a result? You know, there's lots of scenarios that you can apply it to. Only yesterday, Ethan was putting together a piece of gym equipment in the lounge, and I took a photo of him. And because I wanted to send it to his dad, who was at work, to say he's already putting the weights bench together. And so I took a photo of him, and he said, quick as flash, Mum, what are you doing? And I said to him, whoa, just taking a photo. I was going to send it to Dad and show him that you're putting the weights bench together. And I said, why? What's the matter? And he said, because knowing you, that photo will appear on Facebook, and I don't want it on Facebook. And I said to him, okay, I understand. I said, so when it comes to things like that, what does good look like for you then? What do you actually want me to do? And he thought for a moment, and then he said, all I want you to do, Mum, is if you want to use a photo of me on Facebook for any reason, can you just show me it first? I said, of course I can. I said, so how about then, if any time I want to put a photo of you on, I show you, and then you get to decide whether I can use it or not. And he said, okay. So do you know what that did? When I said to him, okay, so what is it you want? Because that was an emotive area for him. I didn't know he would get the ump. But by asking him what good looked like going forward, I am now crystal clear that if I want to put a photo of him on Facebook for any reason, I need to show him first and get his agreement. Not for what I'd say about it, but just to use that photo, which then prevents me making a fatal assumption about what he meant when he reacted to me taking the photo. Because I could merrily go ahead with my business and think that he just had the ump, it was an off day. And then he could see something on Facebook and say to me, Mum, I can't believe you put that on. I told you I didn't like it. And I'd say to him, oh, but I thought you meant it was just about that, or when you were in school. I could tell him that I assumed all sorts of things. But it was my job to understand and get clarity about what good looked like for him. If he said to me, I never want you to put a photo of me on Facebook ever again, then I'm not guaranteeing he's getting his own way. I'd say to him, well, look, actually, there will be instances where I want to do that. How about this? And we would have compromised. But at least I gave him the opportunity to tell me what good looked like. And likewise, I remember at primary school, I would go and meet Brooke in the playground, and at least twice a week, she would, in front of her little buddy, say to me, Mum, is it okay if so-and-so comes home for tea? And then you've got two pairs of eyes looking at you as if to say, well, now you're going to have to say yes. And it used to drive me up the wall, because in front of that poor child, I never wanted to make them feel unwelcome, but it wasn't always convenient. So it was my job to say to Brooke one day, look, Brooke, I need to talk to you about something. When you ask me if a friend can come to tea in front of the friend, it makes me feel uncomfortable, because I can't always accommodate that, and I don't always want to say yes, but I don't ever want to say no in front of your friend. So what I want you to do is, I want you to feel really comfortable to ask for any of your friends to come back for tea whenever you want. But what I want you to do is just ask to speak to me on my own for a second, and just ask it to me in private so that your friend can't hear. And then if I can accommodate it, I will. And if I can't, I'll tell you then. And it will stop you asking in front of your friend. And I was crystal clear. That's what I wanted to happen. That's what good looked like. And you know what? Then she would have friends to tea all the time, but she would handle those situations knowing what good looked like for me. And it's all about building on. Great communication comes from a position of clarity. Now, sometimes it's difficult to believe we can find the right words to say and ask for what we want. But it is, in the spirit of my last video with you, it's so much kinder to be completely clear and articulate what it is you want. It doesn't always happen, but at least you're clear on where your boundaries are and what you want to happen. There's no guarantee, but I can tell you that you will never get a change that you don't ask for. And sometimes you've probably been in situations like me where you'll, particularly with a friend or a husband, I will say, I'll talk to Lewis about something that's upsetting me on. He'll say, okay, so what do you want to do about it? And sometimes I'll say to him, do you know what? I've got no idea. I just needed you to know that at the moment, when you do this, it makes me feel like this. I'm not saying that we can avoid it. I just wanted to tell you how I'm feeling. And sometimes that's enough for someone to just be aware of something that they didn't know. They're not mind readers. We're busy people. We haven't got time to imagine that we can join up the dots of what's happening in someone else's head. So the kindest and the fastest way to have great communication is by being clear. What is the change we want to see? What's the outcome we want to see? What does good look like for us? And then when we're in those situations, having the confidence to say the words, what I'd really like to happen is, or all I want is, ... you fill in the blanks. And then remembering that that works in reverse when you are in a conversation, someone's sharing something with you, especially if you're invested and you're not just two friends having a good old moan, ask the question back of them. So what are you going to do about it? So what do you want to happen? So what does good look like? So from here, you're going to do what? Remember, don't always rush in to supply the solution or the options. Ask the question. Let the person then have enough respect for a little bit of time to process their thoughts. Stay still, sit still, keep your lips still, because the next voice you want to hear is theirs. And that is what I wanted to share with you when it comes to actually knowing what you want, because confident communication comes from being in control, not only of knowing how to raise an issue, but also how to articulate a change or something stopping or starting, so that we can remain in control of our own experience with those we interact with. I hope you found that useful. I'd love to know your thoughts below. So don't hesitate to comment, and I will come back and help you in any way that I can. Okay, have a wonderful afternoon. I will see you back here soon.